Item 8X is a resolution from the Parks Committee to help send a continuing message that we would prefer there not be smoking in our parks. State law does limit the amount of enforcement that we can apply to these situations, but nonetheless, if we have opinions, we can't express them. Comments or questions on item 8X? Yeah, Ed? I know you've got a resolution later.
Well, I was going to
similar.
I was going to go ahead and just bring the amendments and talk about them now, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
Last night I was in a restaurant with my kids eating outdoors, and a gentleman's smoking. He's talking to some women, and the smoke, it's incredible. It's just going down, and we're all just smelling it throughout. And I've got a choice. I can either go talk to this gentleman and ask him to quit smoking. I have that choice. If I'm not there, my children are not going to go up to this man and ask him to quit smoking. They don't have a choice. And I think ultimately that's who this is about, is the children. It's extending the policy that was made when the state decided not to have smoking in the zoo anywhere outdoors, because there's too many children, there's too many animals, the butts are dangerous, and they didn't allow it in the zoo. So this is extending the same kind of policy making to the rest of the outdoors, to the rest of our parks department. I've read in some blogs, comments, people commenting that the city would just do this to have more fines and more revenues. Understand that there are no fines with this policy. And in fact, I like it better that way, because if your thinking is that this is about a $10 or $50 or $100 fine, I don't think that, with all due respect, that you really understand the economic development consequences of what's happening in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma. We have sky-high smoking rates, 24%. And it's not about a $10 or $50 fine, it's about a multinational corporation deciding to relocate here or leave here because our healthcare costs are so much higher here. And part of the reason is 1 out of 4 people smoking. And part of that is the messages that children receive. There is no safe level of secondhand smoke. The levels of secondhand smoke outdoors can reach the same level as those indoors. I would move that we advance this resolution that the Parks Commission adopted, but with 2 exceptions. The first is that at the last minute, there was language put into the Parks Commission resolution that says Oklahoma law does not allow municipalities to prohibit smoking in outdoor areas. That comes down definitively taking a position that that's the interpretation of the law. The problem is that there was an assistant attorney general in 2010 who said the opposite, that municipalities can regulate outdoor smoking in parks. We have, two weeks ago, our municipal councilor said we need to get an attorney general opinion to get clarification on this, because recognize that there's 21 cities and counties who've already done this. All county of Oklahoma property is tobacco free. So now they have no fine, but it's all tobacco free. Norman, Edmond, many other cities. The city of Lawton's municipal councilor said, you can do this, you can regulate parking outdoors. So to come down with such definitive language, if this is puts us at odds with many people who've come to different conclusions. And I just think if we're seeking an attorney general opinion, that means that there's a gray area, that this hasn't been decided yet. And so I'd just like to see that language stricken, because it's extraneous to the resolution. It doesn't matter, doesn't impact the resolution if it's in there or not. And I just had some slides. If somebody could pull those up, I don't know if anybody, and go to the 3rd slide. I don't know if there's anybody available to do that. The second amendment or request is to really emphasize, it's the 3rd slide and then down, is to really emphasize the signage aspect, because again, you're not assessing fines with this resolution. These are just examples of what's been done in other cities. Can you just flip through them, and you can just see what's done in other cities. And so to work with citizens, maybe have a contest, maybe get citizen input of what kind of signage we could put in our signs. It's an opportunity to try and unlink athletics and recreation activity with tobacco. You could be a little more abrasive like New York and do something like that, or you could tone it down a little. But the point is that you can utilize signage to try and educate the populace, to try and send a message, to allow that situation I was in last night where there's somebody smoking. Let the signage try and emphasize to that smoker, you're impacting other people, rather than asking children to go up to an adult and ask them to not smoke around them. Thank you.
Your Honor, I just make one quick comment. It may not be too quick. I'm following Pete's example. I totally support the concept. I think secondhand smoke is a hazard, but I'm not sure this method really is what I would like to see done. It implies, that sign implies that there's some prohibition about smoking in parks. And that's not the case. Because despite what 21 other cities have done, we don't have the clear authority to prohibit smoking in a park. That's why we're asking for the AG's opinion. And to do this before we have that in our hands, before we are allowed to do that, I think is a mistake. The concept is wonderful. I really agree with it. But if we're going to do this, let's have no smoking at all in Oklahoma City.
But doesn't it depend on the wording we use? If we're just
maybe
trying
it
to
does, Your Honor, but I still think the implication is going to be that we have prohibited smoking.
Well, I think we need to be careful that we don't imply something that we don't mean.
That's my concern.
But I think we can get the message out, and there'll be some level of adherence. I think. I think this is a step in the right direction. Yeah. But I'm with you. If what you're saying is if we don't believe that we have the opportunity to make this a strict no smoking ordinance, we better be careful what we say on a sign.
I think
it sets a dangerous precedent for us to kind of step in on state law or our version or our opinion about state law.
Have a sign in front of a restaurant, no salt allowed.
Yeah, I mean, you could get carried away with concepts like this. I agree.
Well, that sign's maybe over the top, but some of the rest of them weren't. I mean, this sign has a violator will be fined $50 in it. We're not going to say that because we're not putting.
We could just put a sign that says, we ask you not to smoke in our parks. Yeah, Oklahoma City Council at the bottom.
What's wrong with
something
that?
Something like that seems like fairly upfront.
Just put across the top of that one, we like tobacco-free parks.
You could have kids share this air, please refrain from smoking or something like that. Yes.
Yes.
Which I think it needs to be more than a request.
Well, a request is about all we can do.
Pete, did we not do this with seatbelts? I mean, when we first with seatbelt, we didn't have a fine, but it was against policy to not wear your seatbelt in the car.
Against the law not to use seatbelt in the car, rather opposed just in a policy that was established. Now we have the right to enforce it now. That's a little different.
What the legislature did on seatbelts is they passed the law that you have to wear a seatbelt, but didn't attach a fine to it. So that's the analogy there.
Okay.
We had a law rather than just a policy.
Yeah, there was a law.
Well, are we ready to vote on item 8X?
Did you?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have a couple people that have signed up to speak. Okay. And then are we going to come back to your amendment later when we get to it?
Ideally, Councilman Shadid's item 10D are just his amendments to the Parks Commission's proposed resolution. So ideally, you should consider them together.
Okay, we'll do that then. Ed, what are your amendments?
The amendment was just to strike the language about definitively what state law concludes, and then second, just to have citizen participation in trying to develop what this signage is going to be, and have the city staff come up with signage that satisfies what was discussed here.
Okay. Pete? Do you want
Second.
Okay. Well, let's call for our citizens to come up and speak, and then I'll ask for Ed to make a motion on his amendment when it's appropriate. Brittany Hodges? Hi. We'll need your name and address for the record, Brittany, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. My name is Brittany Hodges. Address is 5301 Eden Drive in Oklahoma City. And I would just like to say thank you for hearing this on your agenda today. And I personally feel that the signs are an important component of passing such a policy like this one. The main thing to keep in mind is a lot of times with issues like this is awareness leading to compliance. So if you have that sign up, a lot of times people will be courteous and put it out, especially if they've got, their 8-year-old child saying, okay, Dad, let's not smoke here. A lot of parents are going to hopefully comply with the policy. So that's my personal opinion about the signs. I'm also a staff member for the Oklahoma County Tobacco Use Prevention Coalition, and this resolution passed by the Parks Commission does state that they'll work with local tobacco use prevention groups such as ours to help the public become aware of this policy. And so that's something that we will definitely be here to work with the Parks and Rec staff to do that. Basically, Mr. Shadid has said it well. There's no safe level of secondhand smoke exposure. That was said in 2006 by the Surgeon General of the United States. So that's basically the comments that I have, and I'd like to thank you again for hearing this on your agenda today.
You bet. Thanks for sticking around, Brittany.
Thank you.
And we have a group here from the Eagle Ridge Institute for Youth. Yes, sir. You're representing this organization?
I'm gonna
Fine-looking
bring
young
students up
people
too.
you have.
My name is Hiawatha Bolden. I'm with the Eagle Ridge Institute. I live in Midwest City. However, I work Oklahoma County. I'm the former chairman of the Oklahoma County Tobacco Prevention Coalition. And I work not only tobacco, but I work all aspects of substance abuse prevention for the county. Dr. Shadid, you hit it right on the head. Children have no choice. That's the bottom line. My daughter got in Sunday. Her husband is a staff sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. He recently had to just go to California, so she came in with my 3-year-old grandson. When they come back to Oklahoma, it would be nice to have a place where they can go that would be tobacco-free. Children see, children do. These youth that are out of school right now are here on their own time, but when they go to these parks, they want the same thing. It's not about being a tobacco police. It's not about paying a fine. It is about using these types of signs. On our highways, my daddy works here, slow down. Guys, if we give the information properly, we can educate and change attitudes. And those signs will do that perfectly, but we have to let them design these things. When we went to the Parks Council this year, our kids did do signs to show for that, and I think that's what's moving us ahead now. We're here to support that effort in any way we can, but the bottom line is it is for our students. And if you all would like to just say a couple of words, please. I appreciate your time and your support.
Hi, my name is Geronimo Parra, and he's right about that, because I love going to the park, playing basketball, soccer, whatever it is. But when I see this smell of smoke or something, it kind of affects how I play. I start coughing, and I just don't want to go anymore. I see the little buzz and everything, and I'm like, really, why do people come and smoke? That can cause fires. That's causing health to the kids. And how people say we are the future, and if you want, what you're basically doing is you're killing the future, because the cigarettes and everything. I have asthma too, so that's a big problem for me. When I'm downtown and I see someone smoking, I kind of ask them politely, may you please, do that somewhere else or something? And they go no, I bought this, I can do whatever I want. That's kind of messed up,
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes? Anybody else want to speak? Well, we appreciate y'all's interest in this issue coming down, and we'll be voting on it shortly. Thank you. Thank you, sir. All right. Anyone else here wishing to speak on this item? 8X? Yes, sir. Come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Doug Matheny at 2725 West Wilshire. I hadn't planned on speaking today, but I thought that there were just one or two points that might be helpful just to clarify from my perspective. I just happened to have attended several of the Parks Commission meetings where this issue was discussed, and there was considerable discussion about the distinction between an ordinance and a resolution, and so that was discussed at some length, and I just wanted to make sure that distinction was being considered here today. Because I believe that the preemption language, the language that we're concerned about at the state level that limits the degree that cities can take action. Really, all it restricts are laws or ordinances, not resolutions or policies or rules. And I have that language here. I think that legal staff obviously could address that much better than I could, but I think that is the distinction that maybe should be considered here. And my understanding is that a rule can be enforced the same as any other rule that parks may have. For instance, the Oklahoma City Skate Park is currently tobacco-free according to the website. And when you call and ask, well, what happens when you violate a rule of the park? Not necessarily this one, just any rule of the park. Well, yes, the ramifications are that you can be asked to leave. And if with what I was told, just kind of ask, how does it work? How do park rules work? And I think that's a ramification that perhaps people should be aware of when we talk about enforcement, that while there wouldn't be a fine applied, there would be the potential of being asked to leave if you don't, just like if you violate any rule. And so I think that what's being asked for today is just passage of a resolution, kind of like a rule or a policy, not an ordinance, which is what's restricted at the state level, my understanding. Again, legal staff would want to clarify that.
Under this policy, we can ask them to refrain from smoking, but we really can't ask them, we can't eject them from the park, because then you're going to be arresting someone. Essentially, if you say leave the park and they don't leave the park, you have to arrest them, and that's an arrest. So I didn't really want to get into the legalities of it, but you really do need an official Attorney General's opinion to actually address a prior Attorney General's opinion in 1987 that appears to say that our regulations must mirror what the state law and the State Board of Health regulations are. Now, the current Attorney General can certainly change that opinion. He could, clarify it, say, well, that's not really what it meant, or withdraw it, whatever. But you really need an official Attorney General's opinion to address that issue, and an opinion from an assistant attorney general is not the same thing as an opinion from the attorney general. So the attorney general is the elected state law officer, so you really need the official opinion.
Have we asked for an official attorney general's opinion from our present attorney general?
We had considered it when it was going through the legislative committee. Instead, I believe they opted for the legislation we got this year to allow prohibition of smoking outdoors in airports within certain distances of the entrances. However, I'm in the process of drafting something that could be submitted to the AG, so I'll have that in the near future, and council can make a decision if they want to ask for the official opinion.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ed, you want to make your motion in the amendment?
I'll move for the amendments.
Okay. Is this the resolution with the amendment, or do we vote on one separately?
Just the amendments under item.
Okay, so we're voting on the amendment first. This is under 10D of the council agenda.
Your Honor?
Larry?
Okay. One of the amendments then is to strike this paragraph referencing Oklahoma law. Is that correct? Am I correct in that?
Yes, that's one of
And based on what Kenny just said, I think we ought to give serious consideration to leaving that in there, because what I heard him say is that there are some legal things out there, whether Lawton or Timbuktu did it or not, is really not material. We could hang ourselves out if we start doing stuff or saying stuff that goes against state law until we get that Attorney General. Now, if you want to put some wording in here to request an Attorney General's opinion, that's one thing. But to strike this out, I think, would be very foolish.
At the risk of being very foolish, it doesn't mean anything. It means nothing. It has no substance to it at all. It's just a recitation of a view of the law. It doesn't have anything.
And I would point out on our resolution, if you look at the resolving clauses, you're declaring the park system tobacco-free, but any action to be taken is under the second resolving clause, where you will the council request that all employees, agents, and officials of the city and all visitors and patrons of the park system refrain from using tobacco products in outdoor areas of the park system. And it's actually is already prohibited inside buildings or other facilities in the park system. That's actually totally prohibited. You can't do that, and we can enforce that legally. But this would just be you're requesting that they refrain from it. So Wendell and I have discussed this, and our signs really should reflect, the outdoor signs should reflect that that's what we're actually doing. It's a request.
So you don't see any legal a position that we might be putting ourselves in if we take this out?
No.
And I would withdraw my comment.
Ready to vote on the amendment? All right, cast your votes. The amendment passes. Ed, you want to make a motion now on item 10X? Or 8X? 8X. Okay. Yeah.
Your Honor, I have a quick question. If we approve this, will the signage come back to this council then to be approved?
Not the way this is drafted right now. You have directed the city manager through his Parks Department staff to develop the signage after seeking input from the public.
I'm sure the city manager will want to make sure the council's comfortable.
I appreciate that.
All right, cast your votes on 8X. That passes unanimously.